Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into BevNet's inaugural Cocktail Showdown. I'm Ray Latif, the editor and producer of BevNet's Taste Radio podcast, the #1 podcast for the food and beverage industry. BevNet's Cocktail Showdown is a pitch competition that showcases the most innovative and disruptive brands in the rapidly emerging category of ready-to-drink cocktails and ready-to-pour cocktails. The competition features 10 entrepreneurs representing early to mid-stage brands who will each have 4 minutes to present their business plans and products. Following each pitch, the judging panel will provide 5 minutes of immediate and constructive feedback, that is. After all of the brands have presented, the judges will convene, pick a winner, and we will announce that winner live just after 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll also have a short interview with that winner after the announcement. The champion will take home an engraved trophy and a grand prize, an advertising package valued at $10,000. I mentioned our judging panel. Let's meet our esteemed judges, beginning with Heidi Dillon Otto, who is the managing director for the North American division of Distill Ventures, an independent drinks accelerator backed by Diageo. She brings 20 years of expertise in the natural and organic beverage and food categories, and as a seasoned brand marketer and innovation strategist, she has led several startup companies from inception through launch and in-market success. Very, very honored to have Heidi with us. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Up next is Tony Abou-Ganim, who is the owner of the Modern Mixologist. Tony is widely regarded as one of the pioneering and leading bar professionals in the world. He has made dozens of national TV appearances on shows including Today, Iron Chef America, Good Morning America, CNBC, Fox News, and more. Tony is the author of the Modern Mixologist, Contemporary Classic Cocktails, which offers readers an in-depth look into spirits and ingredients available to today's mixologist. He also operates his own beverage consulting firm, specializing in bar staff training, product education, and cocktail development. Also very honored to have Tony with us. I almost called you Tones. We don't know each other that well yet, but Tony, so glad to have you.
Tones works.
All right. Our final judge for this panel is Molly Horn, who is the cocktail strategy manager and mixologist for Total Wine & More, the country's largest independent wine, spirits, and beer retailer. Molly's many responsibilities include tasting, recruiting, branding, and marketing new first-to-market spirits and RTDs. With over a decade in expertise in developing and managing bar programs in the Washington metro area, Molly supports customer education, brand launches, events, and digital marketing to drive revenue. Total Wine spirit sales year to date have already crossed the $1 billion line. Molly, really excited to have you with us as well. This is, as I mentioned before we started recording, the best in the business that we've got here as our judging panel, and we are so excited to have you all with us. Thank you.
Excited to be here.
All right. I think it's time to get to our first contestant for this competition. Judges, are ready to hear from them?
Yes.
Fantastic. That first contestant is Kyle Cook, who's the founder and CEO of Loverboy. Kyle, how are you?
Excellent. Excited to be here. Honored to kick this off.
Yeah, and we're honored for you to kick it off. Thanks so much. You got 4 minutes to present. Are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
Fantastic. Your 4 minutes begin now.
All right. My name is Kyle Cook, founder of Loverboy, and this is our espresso martini. A little bit about Loverboy. Loverboy is one of the fastest growing alcohol brands, and according to Business Insider, the 5th fastest growing CPG brand in the US. We are known for our progressive, better for you adult beverages, starting with our sparkling hard teas, which we launched really as the first hard tea meets hard seltzer, with the now #2 hard tea in the country. We launched our spritz as a better for you alternative to the sugary Aperol spritz. And the espresso martini represents our first RTD cocktail, clocking in at 12%. But we're more than just an alcohol supplier. We're a true lifestyle brand with 1.1 million followers across our team and our brand's Instagram page. But there's plenty of brands with big followings. I think really what distinguishes us is the level of excitement and engagement every post, every product launch, every merch drop. As a testament to that, I mean, we've done $1.5 million worth of merch sales alone in the last 12 months. And I think that's a result of consumers gravitating towards us because we are on a mission to show the world a good time in an archaic industry. No offense. Now a little bit about the espresso martini. We found ourselves ordering this as a replacement for our Aperol spritz when we were out and about. It packs more of a punch. It's more complex. It's harder to make at home. In fact, some bartenders cut corners and use a coffee liqueur, for example. So if we can pull off a better for you version of this in a can, it really would be one of the first of its kind. But lots of better for you brands can, put up a bunch of clean ingredients. The question is, does it check all the boxes that today's modern consumer demands? Starting with taste. And so we start with real espresso. So yes, there is a touch of caffeine. We use maple water to naturally sweeten it and to deliver a creamy mouthfeel, but keep it non-dairy. We used MCT oil. And I think the end result is when you taste it, you feel almost like you're treating yourself and it's indulgence. But then you look at the nutrition facts and you don't even feel guilty. And that's what we're all about here at Loverboy, all about flavor and none of the guilt. Now we sell these in 8-packs for $49 direct to consumer. So that's about $3 per martini. And this is a true DTC play. Instead of, most, RTD cocktails using spirits, we use the proprietary base that allows us to actually have a direct relationship on Shopify with tens of thousands of our customers. We can't keep them in stock. We launched this in April. We did it via text, sold $100,000 worth to our diehard fans on a text basis in the first 24 minutes. A small restock in June after we sold out in 4 days. That immediately sold out. And then just 2 weeks ago, we processed 3,000 orders off our wait list in the first day. And I think what's great is, I assume all the brands today have an amazing tasting product. We have a very viable business model. We use direct to consumer as kind of like a Trojan horse into 44 states. And now all the retailers and wholesalers are knocking on our door. And we're getting noticed. So I think, the beverage, itself, the espresso martini is spiking popularity. It's always been a top 10 cocktail. Wasn't always on everyone's radar, but now there's this nostalgic resurgence and the espresso martini is having its moment. And we are taking full advantage of it. We're the #1 and #2 Google search for canned espresso martini. So with that, coming up on 4 minutes, again, thank you for having me and looking forward to the judges' questions.
All right. Well done, Kyle. And indeed, stick around. The judges might have a few questions for you. A lot packed into that presentation. Well done. I want to start with Molly. A couple points there. Kyle mentioned that Loverboy checks all the boxes for the modern consumer, or that the modern consumer demands, and that retailers are knocking on their door asking for their product to be put into their stores. Both true? Both? Where do you stand on both comments?
So I'm actually glad you bring that up because one of my first questions, and Kyle, I happen to be a Bravo television watcher, and I wonder, meaning again, to your point, no disrespect, but I wonder how much of your current business and fans seeking attention is from name recognition versus people really wanting this exact product. And the reason I mention that is I'm curious about the considering it's the concept of Loverboy in general is this kind of better for you cocktail. I think the espresso martini is more of a luxury. It's an indulgence. So I'm just kind of wondering if you think the growth of this is sustainable or if it's kind of tied more to your current fame, if you will.
Sure. I mean, look, absolutely. We have a platform. We've really built a community. But I think, when we launch a market, for example, with our teas, we're more often than not a top 5 or top 10 hard seltzer. So we're clearly capitalizing on much more than just our audience. Right now with the New York Times and Thrillist and Vice, you name it, calling me, because it's not just Loverboy that's pushing the espresso martini to the forefront. It's having a moment, and sure, maybe we're a part of it, but I think that as we look back to these classic cocktails and add a modern twist, we have others in our pipeline, and I think we're just trying to be a trendsetter. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think it's really about when people come up to me and say, oh, now I watch Summer House because I drink Loverboy, that's like when it comes full circle.
All right. Tony, I'm sure you've tried your fair share of espresso martinis. What do you think of Loverboy, particularly as it relates to its positioning as a better for you and lower sugar version of the espresso martini?
Thank you. Yeah, well, I had the pleasure of having Dick Bratzel make me a espresso martini at Dick's Bar in London. So I was just a little not put off, but by the comment of bartenders cheating using a coffee liqueur, and the original recipe had coffee liqueur in it. So curious a little bit about two things. One, the claim of no added sugar. I find it to be a little bit on the sweet side. And if I follow the directions on the can and just pour it into the glass, that sweetness is really almost cloying. I found it diluted, shaken, and it looked like in the picture you achieved that froth through shaking as well for the photo. It softened that sweetness. But could you speak to me a little bit about the sweetener and the proprietary alcohol that you spoke of?
Sure. I mean, look, this would have been a lot easier if I just used vodka, but then I'm stuck to the traditional 3-tier system. And we use our direct-to-consumer channel as a real way to innovate and also test the consumer's appetite. So we used an other than standard orange wine with a proprietary blend that allows us to classify it as a wine product, because technically speaking, it's wine. We sweeten it with maple water. So it's a reduced version. So it's probably closer to maple syrup, quite frankly. And that allows us to sweeten it with, something that's low in the glycemic index. If you haven't tasted a drink that's sweetened with maple syrup, it might catch you by surprise. And to your point, by putting it on ice is a nice way to actually kind of tone down that sweetness. So we actually recommend, hey, you can drink this a variety of ways, but I think shaken, just like you normally would with a martini, is the way to go. And to your point, look, there's a lot of different ways to make an espresso martini, but there's a lot of bartenders cutting some corners too.
Bartenders wouldn't do that.
But when you order 10 of them at once, I mean, do that and tell me you don't get an eye roll.
Heidi, Kyle talked about Loverboy's success online as a direct-to-consumer brand. How much does that move you when you are considering investment in a ready-to-drink cocktail brand like the ones we're seeing today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, clearly coming out of the other side of the pandemic, this is where it's been at for the last year and a half. So great job on everything you've achieved there. I think one of my primary questions, well, actually twofold. Here you are focusing mostly on the espresso martini in your presentation. So if that's really kind of the halo you're leading with, I guess I wanted to clarify a little bit for the consumer, how you're walking them through your cocktails, and then you do have this online experience. Are the other two kind of a side driver? The espresso martini is first. I think I just wanted to clarify how you're presenting yourself, digital forward, what that looks like.
Yeah, so I always wanted to be an omni-channel brand. So our sparkling hard teas are sold through, beer wholesalers. It takes 500 to cover the country. So one of the reasons why we launched the direct-to-consumer line was a way to leapfrog that. And kind of, like I said, own that consumer data in the vast majority of the country. And, it's our sparkling hard teas that drive the majority of our revenue. I mean, we did $750,000 of the espresso martini in the last 4 months. And so when we see a ton of demand, we take a DTC product and start to talk about traditional distribution. So it's really thinking of it both ways. I will admit, for the average consumer, they wonder why they can't buy our hard teas online, but they can buy our spritz and our espresso. There's a bit of an educational process being an omni-channel brand in alcohol. It's not easy because, you can't educate someone with one Instagram post.
Well, really interesting stuff, Kyle. Thank you so much for the presentation, and happy birthday. Is it your birthday? I see the balloons behind you.
Yeah, last week. They're still going strong.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. 39, baby.
Yeah, it's typically helium doesn't last that long, but well done. All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to our next contestant for the showdown. That's Pete Nevin-Glosky, who is the co-founder and CEO of Drifter Cocktail Company. Pete, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us today. Really excited to hear your presentation. You've got 4 minutes. Are you ready to present for 4 minutes?
Ready to go.
Fantastic. Your 4 minutes are going to begin now.
Excellent. Hi, judges. How you doing? Pete Nevengloski from Drifter Cocktail Co. A few key pieces of what we do here. It's all about discovery, the traditions of spirit production and cocktails of all these amazing places around the world. They're riffs on classics as done with amazing bartenders from around the world. So unique takes on that. And they're rooted in beautiful spirits where we really talk through the provenance and all natural ingredients. So we got here, this is actually one of my co-founders, Nate Whitehouse, and myself at our cane field in Brazil. Our first product was Avoir Cachaça. We actually launched it in Milk and Honey with Sasha Petrosky. And so we got into the game of beverage alcohol in craft spirits and really fell in love with the way bartenders were taking phenomenal ingredients, discovering those, riffing on it, et cetera, and telling those stories. So we've been telling those stories for the last 10 years throughout the US, Europe, and beyond ourselves. We have a growing spirits portfolio that plays into the cans. Launching Avoir in 2013, we formed Drifter, which is kind of the portfolio, in 2017. We launched an Aquavit in 2019, which is really kind of an homage to the tradition of that we make in Brooklyn, New York, with a gentleman named Alan Katz. But we work with two guys who worked under Klaus Meyer, who opened Noma with Renee. So very culinary forward. And these spirits are the basis of our cocktails. And then we launched cans in 2021. I'll get you into that. We have a tequila coming, which is already in the can before it goes live, that we make with the Orendine family. So one of the original 5 families, the only current independent, called Paladar. The other thing that we did is we're really engaged with the bar community. This is actually me presenting at an event called Tiki by the Sea. But what we do is we're really close partners with a number of amazing bartenders that we've gotten to know. And we wanted to tell their story as well through this product. So kind of 3 key points about it. One, quality, and this is really everything, right? Amazing spirits is the basis, right? And we believe in spirits in a canned cocktail as being the differentiator from a malt-based beverage, as well as the all-natural ingredients. And they're all listed on the back where we source them, super transparent. Renowned is about amazing bartenders, from Morena Mercer in Las Vegas to Nico De Soto in New York to Michael Neff in Houston, Texas. And then discovery is really this mission of telling the story of both the spirit, the way it's produced, and the bartender and their interpretation. So here's an example: the passion fruit caipirinha, which includes Agua Prata, again, made by a 3rd generation woman distiller in Brazil with estate grown cane. The other elements, unique notes here of vanilla, cardamom, and lemongrass. So we're going a bit beyond what might be expected or might be seen in the market currently. This is Morena. She's amazing. She ran the Cosmo and now runs the Win. So really brilliant, really creative bartender. We start with a recipe from those bartenders. We work with a food scientist crew to make sure it's shelf stable, but still kind of pays homage or is true to form to the recipe idea as it stood that we originally received. And then Avoir Prata Cachaça. They've been producing Cachaça Cacia since 1923. The cane is grown on the estate. It's wild yeast fermented. It's single pot distilled, and no electricity used in this process. So it's a key part of telling these components of the story. The next
Pete,
product.
I'm so sorry, you're out of time.
Oh,
But,
wow, that was fast. Sorry.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
undercut that. Hey, I think you guys got the vibe on what we're doing here, though, and of course you've tasted it.
Well, I believe all the judges have tasted it, and I'm excited to hear what the judges think. Tony, let's start with you. I have a feeling you probably know some of the bartenders that have worked with Drifter. What are your initial thoughts on the 4 SKUs that you tasted, and do they live up to this to everything that Pete talked about in terms of premium spirits and really mixologist forward formulations?
Well, first off, hey, Pete, my hat goes off to you for engaging these great bartenders in the creation of the drink recipes. as well as celebrating these spirits. I love that you identify them and tell the story. So thank you for both of those things. I know your cachaça well. I love it. In the caipirinha, that's what was missing for me, was a little more of that beautiful cachaça flavor. And I understand at 7%, it's probably difficult to really push the spirit. But any thoughts on getting both that and in the margarita? And your Moscow Mule, of all the mules that I've tasted, was my favorite. So congratulations on the mule. But any thoughts on my concern with bringing up the spirit content?
Yeah, good to see you, Tony. And thank you very much for the kind words. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this category, consider it a cocktail highball, right? So we tested 7, 9, 11%. 12 is kind of the north end of it. We actually didn't get much more of the spirit, even at 12%. And obviously you lose on viability and sessionability with it. So I think the reality is, based on the concept of where we're at, unless we were to make a smaller can that's true to form cocktail at, call it 25, 30%, you're probably not going to get all that nuance. That said, I think what you get is very amazing balance, right? You can taste, you're maybe getting less of the great, but you're getting none of the bad. And I think even at 7%, if you're using bad ingredients, it comes through. I mean, you have amazing palate. All the judges here have an amazing palate, and consumers are getting a lot more sophisticated.
Yeah, let's talk about consumers for a second, because Pete mentioned that they're building through the bar community, which is kind of the opposite of what we heard from our last presenter. Heidi, what do you think of that approach as it relates to ready-to-drink cocktails specifically?
You were reading my mind. This was exactly my question. I wanted to just hear a little bit about your kind of, on versus off-premise strategy. I really liked how you touched on the culinary notes. I also had questions on sides of can, which you touched on. So maybe just take it from that approach of how you think you'll work with the on-premise versus off, and what your vision is there.
Totally. I mean, clearly off-premise is the place where consumers are going to pick this up. This is going to be the heaviest volume channel, but we've been living in the on-premise for a long time. We think it's a great place to drive trial and interest. And this is a category that's now become a category that is now seeing itself in usage in high-end restaurants, hotels, et cetera. So we're working with MGM, we're working with the Cosmo, we're working with golf courses. So these kind of in-between quick service environments, this is a great tool to provide something really high quality, but still a year of shelf stability, et cetera. So we think the bulk of our business, probably 60% plus, will still be, off-premise accounts. And we're starting to build in that universe, both in independents and corporate retail, including a bit of total, which we'd love to do more. But yeah, no, and we certainly think the direct-to-consumer, quote unquote, will be relevant for us. That's still running through brick and mortar legally because of the spirit aspect. Yeah. But we can ship to 40 plus states through a network that we've created. So all three of those are relevant channels for us. And, kind of the on and the direct to consumer, quote unquote, are really great trial drivers and awareness drivers. They're going to make sure the product is moving at high velocity in the off premise.
And Molly, authenticity is a big part of what Pete talked about in terms of how this brand is positioned and marketed. How much do consumers factor authenticity in a brand story when they are buying products like these?
That's such a great question, Ray, because I think that one of the interesting things that I've noticed from this whole competition is that we have a lot of high-end RTDs, which is really kind of an innovative approach to the RTD sector. There's not that many on the market currently, so everyone who's entered this competition is already ahead of the trend. But I think one of the things I'd like to see in that area, and particularly with considering it, Pete, that you guys have this relationship with Sasha Petrovsky and Milk and Honey. And I mean, these are all people I've looked up to my whole life and have had the honor of learning from some of his apprentices. I would love to see that more prominently displayed in the packaging. I think that when you depend, and I'm curious about how you think about who you're marketing towards. But I think the consumer who is going to be interested in these high-end RTDs is an educated consumer who would be very drawn into that aspect. So I think featuring it in some way in the packaging would very much be to your benefit. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
And Pete, we're a little short on time, so if you can keep your comments brief, that would be great.
Totally. To me, craft beer is the analogy here. We're entering a new territory. What I will say is, and I don't know if you could see that, the bartender and their story is on the back of the can. That said, a chunk of our effort, both from press and social media, is telling their story. So we really do want to highlight that. Their unique take on it has really helped make this a unique premium product, along with how it's produced.
All right. Well, Pete, great job on your presentation. Really looking forward to trying this product. Like I said, after the show, but look forward to staying in touch. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
All right. Up next, we have Branya Shillow, who is the founder and CEO of Fisher Island Lemonade. Branya, how are you? Excuse me, Fisher's Island Lemonade.
Thanks, Ray. Good to see you.
Great to see you as well. It's been a while, but I'm very happy that you're joining us as part of this competition. All right. Your 4 minutes will begin now.
Very nice to meet you all. My name is Branya Shillow. I am the founder of Fisher's Island Lemonade. Just want to say thank you to the BevNet team for putting this all together. It's been a long time coming, and I'm excited to be included in this. Thank you to our judges, and hope you guys all enjoyed our samples. If not, enjoy them later. But I'm here to tell you a little bit more about myself and the Fisher's Island Lemonade brand. I created this company back in 2014, so we're on to our 7th year here, and our mission was to create the highest quality, best tasting, ready-to-drink canned cocktail in the United States. I think we're well off to our way with that. One of the things that we're really proud of is connecting with our consumers, whether that may be in person at events, our bartender friends on the on-premise accounts, all the way down to our social media platforms. And that's definitely something that we're very proud of and continue to engage in. Something else here that I just wanted to call out is that we were one of the first canned cocktails to hit the market. Like I said, back in 2014, this is something that I had my aha moment behind the bar that my family owned out on Fisher's Island called the Pequot Inn. One thing that makes us fairly unique is the fact that we are one of the only dual spirit-based canned cocktails on the market today. That consists of our family recipe that has been served and known for generations. And that consists of vodka, barrel-aged whiskey, a little hint of lemon, and honey. And that's an uncarbonated product that's been around for generations that I started canning in 2014. The difference is this is a very delicious, full-flavored product that you can see is a difference between a lot of the RTDs, FMBs, seltzers that are starting to come on the market. We've entered into a handful of competitions and have definitely racked up some nice medals and awards and press to go along with that. We're very proud of some of these that we've gotten a chance to participate in. And one of the other finding factors of this product here is that this comes from a real person, a real place, and is the real ingredients. So hopefully you guys get a chance to enjoy this in your happy place this summer. A little bit more about our story. Fisher's Island is actually part of New York State. It's a little island off the coast of Connecticut. It's been around, I've been going there my entire life, and my family has owned the bar out there, and this is where it really got its start. It's very well known for its natural beauty, oysters, sailing, fishing, golfing, your traditional New England summer. So we're really excited to have launched this at our community and having it be a part of other communities wherever canned cocktails will let you go. A little bit more about our success in 2020. It was definitely a bit of a breakout year for canned cocktails. We sold over 100,000 cases, almost reaching triple-digit growth. We also racked up a couple of titles, being the #1 selling spirit-based lemonade in the RTD category, not only in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Jersey. We do have a small footprint, starting out in our backyard, mile deep before a mile wide approach is our strategy. Very proud of the Hot Prospect Award that we received from Impact and Shanken, as well as Drizzly's ranking us as the top three selling RTD brands in 2020 as well. We have actually increased our distribution to 14 states this year, adding in Maryland and Delaware in the last month or so. So we're really proud to be coming down the East Coast and answering everybody's demands for the hottest lemonade out there. In April of 2021, we're really excited to launch our newest family members. So for the last 6 years, we have been pretty much trekking down this course with one SKU. I think that's a pretty great accomplishment for any brand to be able to go about, as well as being in such a new canned cocktail category. So really excited to share with you what we brought to market, which is our spiked tea, our pink flamingo, our Fisher's Island Fizz, and the Fisher's Island Spirit Pop, which I'm about to go through a little bit more on here.
I'm sorry, Branya. I wish you could go on a little bit further, but your time is up.
Time to go.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Well done. You definitely made me want to go to Fisher's Island like now. So thank you.
Should I just stop share? Oh, you already did it for me.
Yeah. Heidi, let's start with you. You know, Fisher's Island Lemonade seems to have already kind of proven itself in the market ahead of the trend. I think, you know, there might be a question out there about potential. You know, where can this brand go from here after it's already done as much as it has? Do you see even greater potential for Fisher's Island at this point?
Yeah, I think this kind of gets to my two key questions. And Branya, really cool to hear your story. Thanks. Wanted to ask you around where you saw kind of moving west, so to speak, because I'm based in California and I didn't have any clue what Fisher's Island was. And with such an anchor point there, how do you tell that story and kind of move west? So that maybe you could touch on that. And then within that too, you've launched several new SKUs. Great job on those. I do think they could be pulled apart a bit more, like differentiated more. They were a little too similar to me. So again, with your sort of consumer build and the product build, how do you see that coming together?
Sure. Thank you, Heidi. So great question. We're definitely excited to expand further west as well as further down south. You know, for the last 6 years, really been educating a lot of people of what canned cocktails are, as well as our distributor partners, retailers, consumers. So I felt like in the last 2 years, things have really just become, you know, known as to what we're putting in a can and saying what you are versus what you aren't, you know, like a spiked FMB. So we absolutely are answering a lot of distributor demands as well as putting on DTC so that we can try to expand out there and get people a little bit of a flavor of what we have to offer. As for the lemonade SKU, just being, you know, carried across each of the products, that really is our roots. And, you know, coming from a real on-premise place and identifying a bit of an efficiency play and trying to create the canned cocktail sort of segment as it is today. That's something that is really just identifying piece of who we are as a brand and carrying on the lemonade flavor throughout all of our products.
Great. Thank you.
Molly, you know, consumers, fairly or not, are going to look at hard or spiked lemonades and compare one of the two. I mean, do you see that as a fair comparison? Do you see that as a fair sort of trade-off in that consumers are going to be looking at Fisher's Island the same way they might as a Mike's, or are they doing that?
I think that's another great question. I think that one of the challenges that this brand will face, especially to Heidi's question, as they expand into areas that maybe haven't heard of this region or don't know what the brand association means, is that because they are canned cocktails, but aside from the effervescent fizzy tall can, they're still, I think there's a slightly confusing message there to people who aren't expecting that. And I think that ties back to what you're asking. So I'm curious about why the choice to have them all be still when something like Mike's does so well in the national brand category of, you know, it's been around forever and it's still a lot of Gen Z and millennials kind of go to, and I'd imagine that's probably your clientele. So I'd wonder your thoughts on that.
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, overall, the roots of the brand having started the on-premise and already having a consumer base is definitely something that's really key to our already pre-existing, you know, customers. So they already knew it as a cocktail, similar to, you know, some of the other bartenders that have been showcased. So we really want to make sure that we stayed consistent and didn't sort of disregard what they already knew as Fisher's Island Lemonade, because we just simply canned the recipe that has already been served, honestly, you know, to my uncle and his kids and everything. So we want to make sure that we stay true to that. You know, given the whole seltzer craze and everything that is, you know, carbonation, I think that there's definitely a strong point there, but this is definitely a differentiator for us. And it's incredibly satisfying. I really do think as much as our story is authentic and key and a really major like icing on the cake, the liquid does quite, you know, well sell itself. And you pour that over rice, you pull that out of the cooler, out of the fridge, and you crack that. And it's I think it's, a really refreshing beverage to crack and to share. And it's diversifying, the fact that it's not just another carbonated, cocktail. And it's a unique recipe that's not like anything else you guys have seen out there.
Yeah, Tony, we only have a few seconds left, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that recipe. Vodka, barrel-aged whiskey, honey, and lemon. Did it fit the bill for you?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And Ray, when you said it took you to Fisher's Island, when the package arrived and I opened it up, it took me somewhere. I didn't know where Fisher's Island was, but I imagined this beach community and everything from the story to the history and the bar behind it and the flavor. And at 9%, it really developed in the glass over ice. It stood up. I thought it was fantastic and I enjoyed the journey. And I love your little tag phrase. Here's the summer never ending. Love it.
Cheers. Thank you. Find your island, everybody.
Thank you very much, Branya. Well done. And look forward to having some Fisher's Island lemonade in a little bit. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. On to our next contestants for BevNet's Cocktail Showdown. That's Darren Greenya and Julian Mohammed, the co-owners of Wandering Barman. Darren, Julian, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Your 4 minutes will begin now.
All right. I'm Darren. This is Julian, our co-founder Roxanne. We'll be tuning in with terrible Wi-Fi from a village in Corsica. We are Wandering Barman, and we make bottled handcrafted cocktails.
As hospitality veterans, we have an overarching belief that this industry is always in need of solution-driven products, not just CPGs. And that's the case now more than ever.
Right. COVID has laid the hospitality industry vulnerabilities completely at bare.
A little brief story about our story. We opened a New York Times acclaimed restaurant, and that restaurant had a comprehensive craft cocktail program to match. But we quickly found out that it was impossible for our bartenders to keep up with cocktail service during peak hours.
And at that time, we were planning to open a craft cocktail bar right next door. So now we're hyper aware of the time it takes to make a cocktail massively impacts the bottom line.
Slow speed of service means frustrated customers and lost sales.
So we hit the road, and after years of R&D, we figured out how to make batch cocktails as good as made to order. We put them in kegs, and we opened an all-draft cocktail bar with 21 cocktails on tap and one bartender single-handedly tending a 50-seat bar.
And from there, we bottled our cocktails for wholesale and sold them to other bars and restaurants who were also struggling to maintain their own craft cocktail programs.
For other bars and restaurants to want to serve our cocktails, and for their customers to actually want to drink them, we knew that we had to make them as good as made to order. So we made the focus of our brand 100% about the drink.
Not just our rock star bartender personalities or Darren's tattoos.
Our drinks are handcrafted from scratch. We make our own bitters, amaros, vermouths. We make our own syrups and infusions. We do all of it in-house.
Complexity and balance is key. Every ingredient listed on the bottle you can taste, and it's important to us that our drinks are as complex and flavorful as the food that they may be consumed with.
We use all natural ingredients. Even the acids we use are naturally occurring food-derived acids.
Vertical integration means we can ensure quality at every step of the chain, from R&D to batching to bottling. We do it all in-house.
And transparency, this is key for us. What's in the bottle is listed on the bottle. We've got nothing to hide.
All of this, plus our strategic on-premise focus, is bringing a solution to many of the pain points experienced in the provision of craft cocktail programs in the hospitality industry.
We help bars and venues offer craft cocktails with less waste, less training, greater consistency, increased speed of service, and easier inventory management.
And all of this, combined with us selling our cocktails at the right price so bars and restaurants can maintain a 4 to 5 times markup, means increased profitability for them.
What's that I hear you say? What about all those people at home that could be enjoying the drinks? Well, what we found is that an on-premise focus has actually driven our off-premise sales.
In the beginning, when we were self-distributed, we put zero energy into securing off-premise accounts. But after experiencing our cocktails in their favorite bars and restaurants, consumers were asking their local wine and liquor stores about our products. Before long, those stores were contacting us to carry us. We're seeing bottled craft cocktails as the perfect opportunity to expand the market for RTDs. The wins that we're most proud of are when we open up new channels that have never before served craft cocktails. Co-working spaces and golf courses, for example.
Another win, we are opening a 5,000 square foot production space and cocktail brasserie, a sort of cocktail brew pub, if you will. Here we'll have a cocktail lab and a bar, and we'll be running batch and cocktail seminars for the industry.
We see that as another way to further legitimize batch craft cocktails. And to summarize, with the market for spirits-based RTDs increasing 39% to 489 million in 2020 and could reach up to 7 billion in the coming years, it is our time to shine. Our strategic goal is to help grow this category in a way that is sustainable while adding value to the supply chain wherever we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
We did it.
You did indeed. Darren, Julian, very well done. Great presentation. Let's take it to the judges. Tony, there was something that really stood out to me in the presentation. It's all about the drink. If they didn't taste as good as they did to order, we wouldn't be doing this. Did you feel the same way? Were these drinks the same quality that you would get from a bar?
Pretty much across the board. I was pleased with that. I mean, the use of ingredients, the complexity. I almost question if they might be a little too complex for the average consumer. A lot of interesting ingredients. As the gentleman mentioned, they do all stand out. Some a little maybe out of balance. In the case of the smoke, I found was just a little off-putting. Not off-putting, but a little, it kind of took away from the whiskey for me. But the creativity on these and the names and the art and the packaging, it takes me to a craft cocktail bar for sure. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Tony brings up an interesting point, Heidi, about, how does this fit into the average cocktail consumer's purchasing habits? And I wonder, do you see this as a scalable brand given the complexity of their operations, given the complexity of the cocktails? Are these the solution-driven products that Darren and Julian described?
Yeah, no, great question. I think the way that you guys have presented this is great because you really are looking at it from a bartender need, starting with the on-premise, and you've got sort of this specialty channel. You have that slide up at the end of a lot of different ways that this can come to life. Scalability from a grocery, liquor, off-premise might be different, but I think there's a different way to crack this one, which is really intriguing to me. Totally agree. The recipes, the cocktails, the form, the bottle, the artwork just deliver something really unique. And look, I think consumers are looking for elevated experiences. They're curious about ingredients and they want to have really interesting choices across the board. And we're seeing that more and more. And you guys have really nailed all of three of those. So super interested. I have plenty more questions to ask. So we'll leave that for another time, but great job. Super interesting proposition.
Well, let's hear from Molly, and then we can come back to you, Heidi, if you have some additional questions. Molly, it's interesting because typically we hear brands going from on to off. From on to off. And I wonder, do you see the same sort of path for Wandering Barman? Is it as simple as we've seen in the past?
It's interesting because as someone who went from restaurants for the last 15 years and being a beverage director to now being at Total Wine and being off premise, I've really kind of seen the way that changes your consumer base. Because when you're talking about on premise, you have a fairly educated consumer who knows what they like. They have fluidity or spoken language that is shared with the bartender about what the ingredients are. If somebody says oh, it has rose hips, you're like, oh, I know what that means. Versus a average person who shops at a store, they're maybe not quite as eloquent. So I think this product is fantastic. I think the branding is excellent. I think you guys did such a great job with the packaging. I'm curious about a couple things. One of them being what the suggested retail is with the size of it. I think it being kind of flask shaped is a great buy-in for the average home consumer. But considering people aren't necessarily super familiar with the ingredients that you have listed on the back, how are you going to bridge that gap to the consumer who isn't super educated?
Well, most of our drinks are plays on classics. So we kind of elevate the classics, but you'll recognize an old-fashioned or a daiquiri, for example. So that's part of that. We're also finding that by focusing on premise, the bartenders, restaurant owners, bar owners end up being kind of ambassadors and doing a lot of that bridging for us. people trust what they receive or the recommendations for their bartenders, and they're open to new experiences is that way. Yeah, I don't know if that
So some of the education comes from the on-premise.
Yeah.
Which they can then take to, their liquor store or grocery store and find the product that they had and like.
We're definitely focusing on boutique stores to begin with until mainstream perhaps catches up with classic cocktails.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which will always take some time.
Heidi, I'll give you 30 seconds if you want to throw one of those questions in there.
Yeah, I mean, same thing, question on the kind of pricing and margin structure. Like, how do you see the sustainability of that? And also shelf life, because that's where you run scalability issues, is around pricing and shelf stability. So those are two of my big ones.
We can off screen, we can tell you about our pricing breakdown of the cost to us, but suggested retail price in liquor stores is between $5 and $8. Bars and restaurants, they sell them for 10 to 14. We suggest bars and restaurants sell them at the same price as their regular cocktails. That gives us more legitimacy. And there was one more thing in there.
Shelf life.
Shelf life. Tell people to store them the same way they store beer and wine. Like these, they will age in the bottle, but they won't go bad. And we want to put these in high volume situations. We're finding that the greatest volume for us happens to be in on premise, because if they put it on the menu, it just sells. But if it goes into liquor stores and people don't know who we are, it will just sit there. So that's our deal. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Darren, Julian, thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to our fifth contestants for this competition. We have Christy Noonson, John Noonson, and Ken D, the co-founders of Brody's Crafted Cocktails. Christy, John, Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Looks like you're ready to go. You have 4 minutes to present. Are you ready to go?
I think we're ready to go.
Fantastic. Your 4 minutes begin now.
Hi, I'm Christy, founder of Brody's Crafted Cocktails, and I'm here with my co-founders, John and Ken. Brody's was created in my kitchen when John worked to perfect my favorite cocktail, the French 75. I'm not a beer or wine drinker, and I was always looking for a consistently good cocktail, but was having trouble finding it. So John decided to make it for me. Although this was very sweet of him to do, there were still two issues. One, it was time consuming to make. Every time I wanted a cocktail or we entertained guests, John was stuck making drinks. And two, I couldn't take it anywhere with me. Since John and Ken have experience in the beverage industry, they were discussing different brands and launches one afternoon, and it struck me that if we bottled something like my favorite French 75, we might be onto something. And that is when the concept of Brody's was born.
And so we proudly introduced Brody's, a unique line of authentic crafted cocktails with properly balanced flavor profiles. We designed these cocktails to be enjoyed on their own or adding a sparkling component to make them really shine. We gave the consumer this choice because everyone has different preferences for their sparkling, as well as the added benefit of not having the drink go flat once opened. We have a line of 5 cocktails that range from 16 to 25% ABV with a suggested price range of $12 to $14. Knowing that they had to be perfect, we took our time in making sure that the taste and flavor profiles were accurate and authentic. Our initial 5 offerings consist of 2 gin-based cocktails, the French 75 and Touch of Grey, 2 vodka-based cocktails, the Black Orchid and Minted Mule, and 1 rum-based cocktail, the Airmail. Our target demographic is older millennials and Gen Xers, a group that together has a spending power of nearly $3 trillion annually. This demographic enjoys more intimate gatherings with those they love, like small dinner parties at home, days at the beach, camping trips, and many events with their kids. They're busy in their daily lives with work and youth activities and relish the downtime they have and the moments they make in that time. They're extremely loyal to brands, and Brody's is appealing to them because we are convenient, consistently good, customizable, all natural, and mission driven, which we'll talk about in just a bit.
With the formulation set, supply chain ready to roll, and a fresh set of awards from the annual SIP Awards and New York International Spirits Competition, we were ready to execute our 3-phase sales and marketing launch plan. Phase 1 began on May 1st of this year and primarily focused on proof of concept in our local market with retailers as well as consumers. Our small yet ambitious team personally placed Brody's with several dozen independent liquor stores and small chain locations with a success rate of nearly 90%. With confidence that retailers were indeed looking for products like Brody's, we were then able to gauge consumer acceptance through sampling events. Once again, our try and buy success rate was nearly 90%. With phase 1 nearly complete, phase 2 is already underway. Focusing on traditional distributor relationships and engaging with strong sales and marketing partners, Brody's is already committed to a multi-market phase 2 strategy, targeting Florida, Louisiana, and Connecticut, which are already under agreement with both distribution and retail, New York, Massachusetts, and New Jersey. Our near-term target for phase 2 is to obtain at least 200 committed locations by the end of the year. Phase 3, which can run concurrently with the other phases, focuses on innovation for the 2022 season. After launching with gin, vodka, and rum, we recognize a need for equally superb offerings in bourbon as well as tequila. Quite often we are asked, why Brody's? And we always enjoy sharing the story. Many years ago, our first puppy, Monty, a Brittany Spaniel, who's featured on the French 75 label, was an incredibly important member of our young family. While we consider that as a basis for the brand, we've realized that each of our founders has an equally inspiring relationship with their canine companions. So as a way to honor them all, we combine letters from their names to create Brody, everyone's favorite companion.
Speaking of the dogs, our adopted mission at Brody's is to give back to our community in a way of improving the lives of pets in need. We love our dogs and hate seeing any dog suffer. So we are giving back up to 5% of our proceeds to assisting shelters, vets, and other organizations that help animals in need.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Well done. All right, this is the first multi-serve cocktail brand that we've seen. I guess, you could probably swig this in one sitting, but, to each his own, right? Molly, I'm interested to hear, what do you think of the potential for multi-serves like this? We've seen multi-serve cocktail, ready to drink, ready to pour cocktail brands in the past. Do you see some runway for success for a brand like Brody's?
So great question. I think with the price point and the alcohol percentage, that is definitely something that consumers would be drawn into because they have, that's something that people look at when they're walking down the shelf is like, how much value are they getting for their dollar? I do think personally, based on the flavor profile, having tasted them without club soda or sparkling wine and on their own over the rocks, I think that it might almost behoove you guys to maybe focus on it being something that needs a little bit of dilution. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's kind of awesome, and there's nothing on the market like it where it's like, this is the base of a cocktail, you just have to add club soda or sparkling wine. I almost think that's more unique, and I think it's difficult to find the right balance of flavor of something that will taste equally full-bodied on its own or with sparkling wine, and I'm not quite sure that it's there in this package. So that would be my one piece of advice. But in general, I think it's fantastic. And the one other thing I would say is I would love to see something about the fact that you guys are giving back to the adoption animal community on the packaging. I think that's something that people would really be drawn to. And if I hadn't known that, I maybe wouldn't have picked it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That definitely great suggestions. I think one of the things you pointed out about the product being very citrus forward is we were trying to find that proper balance between being citrus in its base, but also in a way that once it gets diluted and added with a sparkling component or club soda, that it's not over diluted and tasting watered down. So there's a fine line there, and we're right walking on the edge of that.
Right.
But definitely with the mission-based piece, we'll definitely take that under advisement. Appreciate that.
Tony, did you get to try Brody's cocktails in the three ways that they suggested, chilled, over ice, and add bubbles? And if so, what are your thoughts on the taste of these beverages?
Well, first of all, the French 75 is one of my favorite drinks, so I was very, very excited to try that. I did not try it with the bubbles because I approached all of these as a ready to drink. I did try it over ice, all of them over ice and chilled neat. I also seemed to feel the acidity pretty much across the line was a little high. And again, when I think of a ready to drink, if I'm going to get the bubbles and add that, it becomes more of a part of an overall drink. So frankly, if I'm making a French 75, I'm going to squeeze a little lemon juice, put some simple in there and gin, and add the bubbles. That said, I would like to see more information on the bottle also. It doesn't really, serving 5, if I don't finish it, do I refrigerate it? How long will it stay refrigerated after opening? A little more of the story. I love the dogs. I'm a big dog person, so thank you for doing that. That's huge, and I think you should share that. But pretty much across the board, I think it needs a little, I don't know what, balance maybe is the word that I'm looking for, but even the dilution on ice intensified that acidic nature that I get after finishing it. So.
Okay. As far as the shelf life goes of refrigeration, it does not need to be refrigerated after opening. And that's one of the reasons why we made it still, because you wouldn't have to drink the whole bottle the entire time. It's got a 2-year shelf life. So it can last for a while. Again, it's only in a 375 ml bottle. So we were again, initial offering, we weren't sure, we didn't want to give too big of a size for somebody to who didn't know what we were offering. So we know we have the education of the consumers that we're working through, and I appreciate the feedback.
Heidi, you get the last word and last questions to Christy, John, and Ken. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of our other judges have hit on similar space that I had. It was just really helping the consumer get through how to use this product. I struggled to, know I tried all the variations and some were better than others. So I think, making a bit of a decision to get pointed on that and be clear with the consumer of, how you would actually suggest that for sure. Sort of, I guess, to that end with the consumer, maybe what you could do is just share a bit about where you think some sweet spots are to really educate the consumer. And if this is a lifestyle brand, I think it's really about how to, when and where and how do I drink this, and nailing that how to drink seems to be an area we're all touching on. So curious about the other thoughts.
As far as the concept, and again, thank you for your feedback. We definitely have been learning that as we engage with the consumers and sample with an added component to it and showing them how to enjoy it. And that's usually what happens. Somebody buying a bottle of Prosecco, hey, we've got an opportunity for you to pair this with Prosecco, and it really does hit home. And that was really the genesis of the project, was how do we have a French 75 that's shelf stable without the bubbles that Christy tends to like. A very specific type of champagne that most people would say do not put that in a French 75, but she does. Some people don't like bubbles, and some people would rather just have seltzer.
Agreed.
That really ends up being more of the focus of the brand. Each of these actually originates from a sparkling style cocktail, but engaging with the consumer and having them become a part of the process, as opposed to just giving them something that's complete and ready to go.
Yeah. Run with that. That's what's working. Run with it and be more specific, I would say, on that sparkling piece for sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, great feedback, great presentation. Well done, Christy, John, and Ken. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. On to our next contestant for this episode. That's Neil Cohen, who's the co-founder of Tip Top Proper Cocktails. Neil, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to see you and excited to hear your presentation. You got 4 minutes. You ready to go?
Sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. Your 4 minutes will begin now.
Thank you to BevNet and to the judges for the opportunity to highlight our growing category of prepared cocktails, and specifically my brand Tip Top Proper Cocktails. I'm Neil Cohen, one of the founders of Tip Top, along with my childhood friend, Yoni Reisman. We're on an exciting journey, and I'm glad to be able to share some of this with you today. Our journey began as music festival producers, and we spoke to consumers, concessionaires, and to our inner monologue and decided we needed a better solution for serving a quality cocktail in high volume spaces like music festivals. And so we launched in the market a little less than 2 years ago, and we're well on our way to laying the foundation to create the world's most loved cocktail brand, which is our vision. We're differentiated, and the way that we're going about this is that we've got 100 ml single serve cans. We're doing high ABV, non-carbonated cocktails, and it's positioned as an accessible luxury. We have a Delta Airlines partnership on all domestic flights, and we're seeing traction that's got us estimating over $10 million in revenue in 2021. That's up from $600,000 in 2020. As we built this brand, we were really focused on classic and iconic. Even the name Tip Top sounds like something maybe one of your grandparents might say. After all, we're doing cocktails that have always been in demand. We're just making them available on demand. So when you go to taste a cocktail that says old fashioned on it, it better taste like an old fashioned. People know what they like there. So we enlisted the help of Miles McQuarrie, James Beard recognized mixologist from Kimball House here in Atlanta, where we're based. And he's developed all of our recipes and tasted every single batch of our cocktails before they go to can. We started with a stirred line in order to position ourselves to that cocktail connoisseur that may be skeptical of this category. Starting with a Manhattan old-fashioned and Negroni felt like a good way to earn the trust so that then we could bring on a shaken line in March 2021 with a margarita, daiquiri, and bee's knees. No one really needs another margarita in a can, but if it's a trusted brand, it'll be worth tasting. As far as the way we're merchandised, you can see our counter rack there. Great for impulse buy and for trial. People get 1 or 2 cocktails, then they graduate to 4 to 6, and the retailer knows to bring in these 8 packs that we've designed to sit on the shelves as well as in the cold box. So while we started off really aiming for a solution in the festival space, this is Yoni and I backstage at Bonnaroo, we were really going, and that what we've seen now that with the disruption in the space with White Claw and people premiumizing to High Noon and so forth, Tip Top is awaiting them on the other side of this journey. We know what we don't know. We come from music festival production, so we've really developed a team of great beverage experts and supply chain experts to help us really attain our vision. Tip Top's found a sweet spot of accessible luxury, great quality cocktail in a beautiful package at only $4 to $6 a can, depending on the market and where you're purchasing. We've seen incredible traction. The Delta partnership, Delta Airlines partnership has yielded us massive awareness. We're on the back of everybody's seats when they sit down to fly, and the trial has been great. It's now profitable. We've been approved in hotel chains, Hilton and Marriott. An e-commerce business we started up in November 2020 is now seeing $300,000 plus in consumer sales, and that's all organic traffic. And in traditional distribution, we're at 30 plus cans a day in our top accounts. Great press and accolades, New York Times to Bon Appetit. BevNet's given us some awards, and Garden and Gun, Big Boy has shouted us out on his Instagram, as well as Chef Michael Simon. So plans going forward, meet the demands of our airline partner, as well as really take advantage of the exposure that we're getting by produce. That's our number one focus. So cheers to a bright future ahead for Tip Top Proper Cocktails.
All right, Neil, well done. Thank you very much. Heidi, let's start with you. Obviously, Neil outlined quite a bit of success and growth over the past couple of years, more specifically over the past year. Can they keep it up is the question. I want to go to a point he made about the theory that they have that consumers will trade up from White Claw and High Noon to Tip Top. Do you see that happening? Is that less of a theory and more of a reality?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say totally agree with your sentiment there. I think that's a bit what I was talking about earlier around consumers trading up, maybe drinking fewer cocktails, but really enjoying what they have. And what you've come up with is, really true cocktail, great spirits base, great recipes, excellent job. My question was a bit on scale too, as we, as this expands and you go, really like your hospitality focus, the airline, brilliant, right where I was seeing it too. Scalability from, you have this amazing can and pack, which is pretty unique to the market. We're not seeing much of that. So any question in your mind around the ability to continue to produce that at really high volumes, because the can world is pretty tricky right now. So wanted to hear that.
Sure, absolutely. We made a decision early on to work with a co-packer on our production, and we never would have been able to get to the scale that we're at in the time we have otherwise. We are scaling up. We're adding more shifts. We're looking for more people to be able to work said shifts, of course, and adding lines to our co-packer partner in order to meet the demands.
Great. And then I guess to that scalability from your team perspective, you mentioned, looks like you have a great advisory team. Where do you think you need to put your energy next for that scalability?
Sure. We need to continue to focus on production. Absolutely. And then if we can once we meet those demands, it'll be marketing. I mean, so much of what we've done has been due to organic reach, and we've barely even pulled the lever on any traditional marketing. So that's really where I think our focus will be once we solve for meeting the demand with production. Thank you.
Tony, Neil described Tip Top as attempting to achieve this positioning as of classic and iconic. And, you know, for someone who is and could be described as both classic and iconic, I wonder how you see Tip Top as fitting into this growing set of ready-to-drink cocktails.
Well, I love the packaging. I love the feel of it. It has this classic representation. It kind of jumps off the shelf at me. I love that you're doing higher proof cocktails, boozier cocktails. What maybe some of mine, you said it should taste like the cocktail. I don't know how familiar you are with the Negroni, but do you think your Negroni tastes like a classic Negroni?
Sure. I think that what we were aiming for, obviously, that's not actual Campari in there. We've made our own red bitter aperitif, and that's a secret recipe. But you know, as far as the Negroni, I think we're achieving a balance that sometimes Negronis don't always have. That bitter wallop that happens, it's still recognizable as a Negroni, and I think we still have some room for improvement. And we actually have a formulation that'll be going in the can in the future that I think kind of ups some of that bitterness that may be a little bit lacking for the true Negroni, like bitter fan.
Yeah, I kind of live by the sword that no Campari, no Negroni, but I know that's hard to do with proprietary.
I hear you.
But your old fashioned was spot on. I finished the whole thing over ice. It just got better. If I had any negative, you know, I did find a little acidic aftertaste in the bee's knees and the daiquiri, but I would have liked, I mean, the rum comes through beautifully in the daiquiri. I would have liked a little more gin in the bee's knees at 26%. That gin character got a little bit muted, but overall, a home run, guy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. We've only been in the market with the shaken line since the spring. So, you know, we're always tweaking these cocktails. We're always working with Miles to improve the recipes. So that's really helpful feedback.
Yeah, Molly, you get the last word here. You know, Tip Top markets a variety of cocktails, a pretty wide variety of cocktails. Is that something you like to see out of producers, some of the brands that you work with, or do they need to be a little bit more narrow focused to work with you guys?
Well, first of all, speaking of last word, if anyone wants to follow that,
that would be delicious.
No, I think that variety is, of course, one of the key elements to being successful. Obviously, you don't want to overindulge, but it's important to have, you know, a range of things that are going to engage a range of consumers. I am interested to hear about the financial, the suggested retail of these and kind of how that would present itself to consumers, because I love the packaging. I think it's adorable. And actually I was, somebody walked by the office when I was tasting them and they were like, oh my God, that's so cute. What is it? And so I think it very much like appeals to, like you said, the music festival goer, the young woman or gentleman who, whatever, wants to carry something with them. But I'm curious about how that financially translates to the consumer, because these are higher proof and they're small.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it is a small can. As soon as someone tastes it, they recognize that, you know, in this can, there's over 2 ounces of spirit, and you're getting really high proof. You know, I think it's all about accessibility, like I said, an accessible luxury. So at $4 to $6, depending on the market that you're in, we're really able to capture trial and also, you know, attract a higher end consumer. So it's really feels like it's in the sweet spot. And once you're tasting it, it really, you know, is equivalent to some of these really high level cocktails that you would get at a cocktail bar.
He's at $4 to $6?
Yes, per can. That's, you know, depending on the market.
All right. Neil, thanks so much. Well done on that presentation, and hope to catch up with you in person soon at some point this year.
Great. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. All right. Up next, we have Tom Dufek, who is the co-founder and president of Plain Spoke Cocktail Company. Tom, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you, Ray?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm excited to hear your presentation. Are you ready to give it?
I am ready.
Fantastic. Your 4 minutes will begin now.
So my name is Tom Dufek. Like Ray said, I'm one of the co-founders of Plain Spoke Cocktail Company based in Madison, Wisconsin. And wanted to just, thank you guys for having us first and foremost, and then tell you a little bit more about our cocktails here. So I'm a recovering bartender. I spent about a decade behind the bar, running cocktail programs, drinking cocktails, making cocktails. And we launched Plain Spoke about 3 years ago. We saw the need for a better canned cocktail. I think, in the terms of in the timeline of RTDs, we're probably a little bit on the older scale, I guess. 3 years, the space has changed so much in that time. When we came out, there was not a ton of cocktails that were made with real spirits, real ingredients. So what we really wanted to do was take the convenience of a canned cocktail and put it in a format that actually had quality ingredients. If you go to a fancy cocktail bar, you're not going to get a Moscow Mule made with lime oil and citric acid. So why do you want that in your canned cocktail? So we really wanted to up the quality game when it comes to what is available in a convenient format. We use, again, like I said, real ingredients, nothing preservative or no preservatives, nothing artificial. And we're proud to be from the Midwest. We try and use Midwestern spirits whenever possible. And we have 4 different cocktails that we, make these days. We have a Moscow Mule, we have a Mojito, we have a Bourbon Smash, and we have a Wisconsin favorite, the Brandy Old Fashioned. We have 2 facilities. We call it the Cannery, which is our own facility. It's one that we operate. We do all of our own canning. We do all of our own recipe production. There's no flavor house or anybody in between us. And then we also have a tasting room in Madison, Wisconsin, that's really dedicated to trying to push the limits of what we can accomplish and see if there's other things out there that consumers want that eventually end up in package. Went through those cocktails there. What really differentiates us from a lot of other folks out there is that, we like to say we're born behind the bar, not the boardroom. So the impetus for creating the company was that there was a way to do it better. We really liked the convenience, but the quality options that were out there just didn't really cut it. So we've been in the market now about 3 years. We sell in 4-packs at 250 milliliters per cocktail, primarily in the off-premise. That's really where our focus is. We do have some on-premise accounts, but we really want to be the cocktail for people who have an active lifestyle and are on the go. And simply want to enjoy a better cocktail in places where a cocktail shaker is not necessarily available. I made cocktails for a living for a long time, and I'm certainly not bringing a cocktail shaker on the boat every time I want to make a daiquiri or a mojito. So we really wanted to put that same cocktail bar experience in a convenient package and let people try them wherever they were. And thank you for your time.
All right. Well done, Tom. Let's take it to the judges. Tony, let's start with you. Tom piqued my interest with the Brandy Old Fashioned. Did you get to try that? And what are your thoughts on that product and the lineup as a whole?
Well, I love that you celebrate the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest, and you're celebrating spirits and ingredients from the Midwest. Thank you. I was just in Wisconsin drinking Brandy Old Fashions, and they are a little sweeter, and they do add the soda water, and I think you hit all those notes. I would have liked to seen a little more brandy. Pretty much across the board, I would have liked to seen a little more of the character and flavor of the base spirits. And I was just curious if you experimented with different percentages of alcohol in your drinks.
We did, actually. We originally sold these in 200 milliliters, and they were 10 to 11% ABV. Now they're at 8% ABV, except for the Brandy Old Fashioned, which is still at 10. We didn't want to cheat the loyal Wisconsinites. We like our brandy here. But actually, we got a ton of feedback that people really wanted something that was a little bit more approachable in a larger format. So that's one of the reasons we went to the 250 milliliter size. As a former bartender, I prefer a little bit higher ABV as well. But that was some of the feedback that we were getting from the market and kind of why we made that change.
Molly, as we're seeing more and more ready-to-drink cocktail products come to market, packaging is really going to be important. Can you talk about the packaging for Plain Spoke, your thoughts on it in terms of this growing set?
Yes. So one of the first takeaways that we had when I went through all of these packages with my buying team here at Total Wine was that it's very arresting. I think it's disruptive. I think it's visually, it's going to stop you when your eyes are scanning through the shelf. So that's fantastic. I love that you have the name of the cocktail and it's a relatable name that people can feel. They don't like. There's no gatekeeper sense to it because you know what a mojito is supposed to taste like. You know what a brandy old fashioned is supposed to taste like. It's not intimidating. So I think a lot of those things you guys are doing really, really well, and kudos to you on that. I do think the one thing I would say is that from I feel like you're kind of towing the line between high end or like craft RTD and of relatable to all of the public RTD. And I wonder if, you spoke to this a little bit a moment ago, but as far as the flavor goes, it's almost like it's just easy, and it's not picking a side. It's like, I guess my question is, who are you trying to target with this? Who's your ideal audience?
Great question, and I'm glad you're picking up on that. Like I said, we started about 3 years ago, so the RTD market was nowhere kind of near as developed as it is these days. So we really wanted to come out with cocktails that, first of all, people knew of, that they'd heard of, and then we didn't want to, go super crazy with house-made ingredients and things that people could kind of push people off. We really wanted to start to introduce people to this concept of it can come in a can and it can actually taste good and it can use good ingredients. One of the things that we're starting to do this year, we actually did it. We released a new cocktail about 1 month ago, and we made a bee's knees with cardamom. So we added a little bit of a twist on that one. And that's one of the things that we're really looking forward to. That
was actually my favorite.
Oh, was it? Okay, good. So we're going to partner with other local companies, whether it's, this one we partnered with Best Store Gin out of Cambridge, Wisconsin, but kombucha companies, soda companies, and do things that are a little bit more off the wall now that we have the core lineup that people, know and are used to and recognize and see as something that they trust. We really want to kind of branch into some of those more aggressive or off the wall flavors. But you're 100% right. It was an intentional choice kind of out of the gates a couple years ago.
And Heidi, we have a little bit of time left. Born in the Midwest, but can Plain Spoke be available everywhere? Does it have that scale potential?
Yeah, I think this is what I really like about this is we're seeing a lot of, RTD brands born on the West Coast specifically. And I think there's something around this kind of like convenience and on the go healthy lifestyle that sort of exudes from this, but it's actually really interesting to see something coming from the Midwest, because I think this can speak to a broad base of the population. And the fact that you've got some anchors there with the cannery and the tasting room, found that to be really interesting and perhaps quite unique, because you are cutting out a little bit different space here. And I agree with the other judges around, the pack is really pops on shelf. And I think you did a great job with the graphics, really, highlight some interesting thing. Had the exact same feedback on the liquid. I really wanted to go somewhere, and it was a bit kind of adult soda to me, and missing kind of a bit more of the depth with the spirits. But look, I don't know if I'm sort of debating, is that a bad thing because of, where you are, if you're really getting some anchors in the Midwest and you can be approachable with the mainstream consumer. I think the way you've explained the laddering of the, now bringing on the bee's knees, and I'd really like the call of the down there. I think there's some interesting things you've gotten. So, probably one of the things I would ask and even recommend is, as you lay out your strategy forward with that, how do you see that rolling out as you expand? So I'll ask you the question, and if not fully fleshed out, maybe something to think about going forward.
Yeah. Well, for us, it really starts at the tasting room, kind of seeing what people respond to. It really gives us this kind of lab, if you will, to really see what people are interested in. And then the plan for us is to really roll it out in Madison and then kind of expand from there. So take those things that are working really nicely that people seem to be gravitating towards, and then start to expand that across the state and then the other states that we're currently distributed in.
And via off-premise, is that what you're?
Yep, exactly. I mean, technically on premise in the tasting room, just kind of start, but then exactly in the off premise.
All right, great presentation, great feedback, great questions, great overall. Tom, thanks so much for taking the time. Excited to see where Plain Spoke goes from here.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Up next, we have Jenny Griffo, who's the co-owner of Griffo Distillery. Sounds about right. Jenny, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Excited to be here.
I am very excited to hear about your ready-to-drink cocktails. I see you got your presentation ready. You got 4 minutes. You ready to go?
I am ready.
Fantastic. Your 4 minutes do begin now.
Hi, everyone. I am Jenny Griffo, co-owner of Griffo Distillery, located in Petaluma, California. We're just 45 minutes north of the Golden Gate Bridge, and we are a grain to glass and now a grain to can distillery. Founded in 2013, my husband and the head distiller, Mike, brought his PhD in physics and his decade distilling nanoparticles for next generation solar research. And I brought a degree from Stanford in international development and a decade of managing large teams and programs internationally to our crazy distillery project. The use of science and precision to hone craftsmanship is our signature approach to crafting beautiful and replicable spirits. With 6 spirits on the market, including our newly released vodka, and now our 2 newly launched canned cocktails, we have distribution in 3 countries and 14 states, primarily along the western and eastern coasts. Our facility is 13,000 square feet, has a 4 million annual can production capacity, and cans cocktails and custom distills for over 50 nationwide brands. We have a full event program and barrel program open to the public with food, wine, beer, and of course, cocktails. In 2016, when the California ABC changed the laws, now allowing distilleries to pour cocktails and sell bottles, we immediately built out our tasting room. To start, as you can see on the left, I set up a folding table in the corner of our space while construction was still going on, and I poured our now locally famous Tamales Collins. Spirits can be inaccessible sometimes, and so it was a great experience to be able to share our world-class spirits with our community. With over 45,000 customers through our front doors so far, we have learned a lot about which cocktails keep people coming back for more. But when COVID hit, we lost our ability to make our cocktails accessible. Our tasting room and events shut down, and our family of 5 spent weekends finding air and space along our beloved Northern California coast. During this time, we decided that we were perfectly situated to bring what we had learned about cocktails and about canning to our own ready-to-drink cocktails. Introducing the Tamales Collins and Whole Lotta Sunshine. Launched in July of 2021, these products were developed to bring bar-quality cocktails using Griffo Distillery's award-winning spirits to market, and a love of fresh flavors, complex undertones, and the Northern California coast. Sold in 4 packs of 250 ml cans, these cans each contain only fresh juice, 2 ounces of Griffo spirits, Flora Luna organic syrups, and water. That's it. The Tamales Collins. This is our spin on the classic Tom Collins. It is a refreshing, lightly citrusy drink crafted with our Scott Street gin, fresh lemon juice, blood orange juice, and a touch of cardamom clove syrup. Now you don't have to be at the distillery to enjoy this Griffo cocktail and taste a part of our Sonoma County story. And bonus points if you enjoy it near Tamales Bay. Whole Lotta Sunshine. Now this special drink is like running through a field of wildflowers into a citrus grove, directly followed by a spontaneous splash in the Pacific Ocean. With uplifting grapefruit, light floral notes, our premium vodka, and the perfect touch of Amaro, this balanced spritzer is sure to be a summertime or literally anytime favorite, like California in a can. In honor of a world that we can pass on to our 3 children, we donate a portion of all sales to climate action groups, the first being Coral Reef Alliance, a fan of our 8-year-old son, Henry. We are currently testing market sales locally in a few large key accounts that we've partnered with since the very beginning of our distillery. And we are looking to a larger spring 2022 release, focusing on coastal communities along the western and eastern seaboards. For reference, 26.7 million people live in coastal communities in California alone. So our penetration need not be nationally broad, but deep within the ideal coastal niches. Thank you for learning more about Griffo Distillery and our new canned cocktails. please drink with purpose.
All right. Well done, Jenny.
Thank you.
Let's hear from the judges. Heidi, we'll start with you. Griffo's Cocktails, as Jenny outlined, were born out of COVID. Born out of COVID is one thing, but where do they go from here? Do you see a runway for the cocktails as they stand today, as they're positioned today?
Yeah, Jenny, great job. Really like the cocktails. I think there's some really unique flavors in here and does a great job of delivering an interesting cocktail and the aroma and some interesting notes, as you say. I really like them. This was exactly my question. How do you, as you're looking at your business and expanding, where do you see putting your energy? And I think, as we'll often see, really like when you've got your spirits going into the can, because there's something about that whole, but it also really creates complexity with where you focus and how it's almost two different businesses. So curious to hear, just that. How do you see this evolving?
Yeah, luckily our distributors are really on board with bringing these to market, and they're doing so right now in small ways to kind of test where we're most successful. But in particular, focusing on the Sonoma County, Napa, Mendocino areas, these products are being really well received by premium boutique hotels. We have tons of hotels all along our coast that we have deep and long-term partnerships because they all serve our spirits within their bar, and they're moving them right now into their mini bars in their hotels. And it's been exciting to see that, we don't have to sell millions of units for us to be successful with these SKUs. It's more about deep penetration within the ideal kind of clients.
Well, let's explore that a little bit more. Molly, do you agree with that strategy? Do you see, a brand going deep along the coast as giving it potential to be national at some point? Or do they even need to be national at some point, as Jenny mentioned?
Well, of course, we all always want to get as much, exposure and sell as much as we can. I imagine nobody would say no to the opportunity to go national.
That's right.
It's funny. One of the things I was most curious about comes down to the packaging and branding of the actual visuals of the case on the shelf, like the 4-pack on the shelf, as well as the cans themselves. And one thing that I learned, I'm a little older than some of the people I work with, but somebody walked past my desk who's in her young 20s, and she was like, "Oh, that's Grand Millennial. That's Grand Millennial chic." And I didn't know what that meant, and she informed me. But I'm wondering, like, what your ideal kind of customer is, and how you see that developing, or how you're targeting them.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that your colleague is right in that we do have a large appeal to quite a different demographics out there, and we've been able to launch locally out of our tasting room and serve our current customers. And we have a range from seniors and graduates from our local colleges to retirement groups here, and all of them seem to be responding to the packaging. I think our love of the coast and our love of craft beautiful ingredients really comes through for them and makes the price point kind of really worth it to them.
And what's the price point? Or
$5 a can, depending on which market.
Tony, Jenny described A Whole Lot of Sunshine as California in a can. Well, she had a much more beautiful description before she said that. What are your thoughts on The Whole Lot of Sunshine and the one I'm holding in my hand, the Tamales Cocktails?
Well, I love the package. I love the feel. I love that part of California. I'm a Bay Area guy. Rode my motorcycle up there. So it really kind of took me to the place. And first thing I wrote down was fresh citrus, like sunshine in a glass. So I agree with that.
That's great.
And on the Collins, well balanced. The gin, even at 10.5, was there. It was in balance. It was in harmony. My only negative was the fizz dissipated rather quickly in the Collins. I love that tickle of the bubbles. And especially when I poured it over ice, I preferred it chilled right from the can the best. But I was just curious, did you have any issues with carbonation, or maybe upping the carbonation?
And that's really great feedback. And since we do it in-house, it's really simple for us to just increase that carbonation level. We're always looking for that gentle balance where I don't want the carbonation that can be almost aggressive in your mouth, where it doesn't allow you to experience the flavors. But I do agree. I think a notch up on our next run would kind of improve it.
But well done. I enjoyed both of them.
Thank you so
and
much.
I'm looking forward to trying the spirits on their own.
Yes, and come visit us next time you're riding north.
There you go. Outstanding. Once again, great feedback and a great presentation, Jenny. Thank you so much. Hopefully I can get out to Petaluma to your distillery at some point in the near future.
Please do.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Up next, we have Lawrence Cisneros, who is the CEO of Drinksmith. Lawrence, how are you?
Good.
Lawrence, you have 4 minutes. Your 4 minutes are going to begin as soon as you say go.
My name is Lawrence Cisneros, and I'm the co-founder of Drinksmith. And my business partner and I, Brandon Schwartz, about 7 years ago, set out to create a cocktail that would recreate the live craft cocktail experience in a bottle. Great cocktails are hard to find and they're hard to make. And everything we would see on the store shelves was not to the same level of caliber of quality and freshness that you would get at the world's best bars. So we set out to create Drinksmith, the world's first fresh bottle cocktail. Now, the citrus are unpasteurized, they're cold pressed, there are no preservatives, and the spirits we import from around the world and are the same exact ingredient builds you get in a bar. We put them in a bottle, no acids, no additional, anything. Now, what's special on top of everything is our bottle is a 2-chamber bottle that separates the spirits from the fresh ingredients. You rotate it and it opens a valve on the inside, and you can shake yourself and mix a freshly mixed cocktail in a bottle, recreating that live craft cocktail experience in a fresh citrus, mixed fresh, as if we're made for you by a world-class bartender. Now, the citrus, even though it's unpasteurized, uses a unique technology called HPP, or cold pressurization. 85,000 PSI is put on the bottle, which gives us about 5 to 7 months of refrigerated shelf life. Now, in doing this, we were able to attract world famous bartenders because they wanted to work with a company and create cocktails that tasted as if they were made in their bar. So we work with different bartenders who have followings from 20,000 to 200,000 followers. They earn commissions on those drinks, so it's kind of a give back program. And for a lot of bartenders, they're always trying to figure out what's the next step for them after working in the bar scene for maybe a decade or two. We've made about 25 different SKUs to date. Some ranging from more simple cocktails like margarita and our bourbon sour, which are still kind of our top sellers, to more exotic cocktails that, like our spiked lemon tea, which is basically a recreation of the Philadelphia Fish House punch recipe, which really takes a lot of time and effort, and we're able to bottle that. So really kind of taking almost ancient cocktail specs and bottling those as well. And so what's really cool about not only making a product that people can taste the difference of, because that citrus, we've gone to so many lengths to really kind of preserve it, preserve the freshness essentially. We kind of created a moat around our product. There's not really anyone who's going to be able to do it because of all the lengths of the cold chain from bottling to distribution that we've done. We've been able to actually get a patent on our bottles. Is actually a little old of the slides. We were just recently granted that. And one of the special things was the manufacturing component. So we were actually able to joint venture with one of the largest fresh juice co-packers in the country, and we created a JV where we have the only facility in the country that has the FDA and TTB compliant licenses to bottle both fresh citrus and bulk spirits all in the same facility. To date, we launched about 2 months before COVID, even though it was like a 5-year development, and we do about 99% of our sales through the website. On the back end, we've worked through an app called Cloud Bar, where orders essentially routed to different retailers around the country that fulfill those orders. We move about 25,000 drinks a month through the website. And as we kind of were leaving COVID, we're having our eyes towards brick and mortar distribution. We're actually in a test store in Total Wine. We actually just greenlit to all of Southern California this past week, which is exciting. We just shipped our first pallet out to a distributor in Georgia, about 2 pallets, and we're able to move about through 1 pallet, to a number of their retail partners, in a matter of days. And we're greenlit to have brick and mortar
Lawrence,
distribution.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you there. Your 4 minutes are up, but thank you very much. Great presentation.
Yep.
Molly, let's start with you. Lawrence mentioned that the brand has already gotten into Total Wine. What's interesting is you mentioned earlier the ability to sell a lot of product is really of key importance. Given the fact that this does need to be refrigerated, do you see this as being limited in comparison to other RTD cocktail products?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a question from Molly.
Well, I'm going to follow up on it. I'm going to ask you a question. So don't worry, Lawrence. You're up to bat in a second. And I think that's a very good point that you make, Ray, because one of my biggest takeaways, and I was talking to our ambassador who actually brought it into the stores that we are currently carrying you guys in. And our biggest concern is not just the fact that it has to be refrigerated. Sure, so does beer if you want to buy it and have it ready to go. But the concern that we have and that I have is really more of the shelf life and the range of SKUs. So it's like, how does a store decide which ones to carry? You can't necessarily carry all of them with the range of expiration dates because they're not all the same, which is very valid, but that my biggest concern would kind of be like how to approach that, how you're pitching that to who's going to carry you and how you picture your ideal clientele outside of just the direct to consumer market.
Yeah, so I mean, the range of SKUs was really kind of an e-commerce dimension of the business where we can make it and then get it out to customers really quickly. In the brick and mortar channel, like in Total Wine, we only have 5 SKUs, and I think we probably only go out to maybe 6 or 7 max in the store. It's almost been a great kind of trial and feedback generation kind of program that we've had where we find, okay, this cocktail that is not part of the classics is doing exceptionally well, maybe in this particular market in Georgia or New York, California, can kind of tailor those kind of additional SKUs for those markets. The drinks last actually 7 months now. We actually did a recent shelf life study, so they really have a lot of shelf life. Additionally, we were able to find through a recent study that even being out unrefrigerated for even a number of days in kind of warm temperature, there's no microbial growth, and so that's kind of a testament to the kind of the acid and the HVP combination. So, there's definitely a little bit of challenges here or there, but over time, given that there's such high demand, we're moving about 8 drinks per day at the store. So there's really a lot of pull through of the product. So, even though there is a bit of a, shorter shelf life, the fact that we have such high velocity and that 7 months really has improved to been an issue for, the Total Wine store we're at.
And I'm sorry if this is okay, I have a quick follow-up question, which is out of curiosity, having bartended for years, the logic of separating the spirit from the other ingredients seems odd to me because the spirit usually keeps the other ingredients fresh for longer. I understand the idea of mixing it and that's kind of cool for the consumer, but did you guys ever think about like, oh, well, it's going to give it a shorter shelf life?
I mean, adding a little bit of spirit to a citrus, like for maybe like an orgeat or some other kind of kind of stabilization methods, you're really just adding just a little bit. You're not adding the whole kind of cocktails worth. So in a bar, they could pre-batch all their cocktails, but they mix it right at the last moment because it adds a certain crispness. And kind of, if you don't do that, it kind of doles it out. Just like, there's a lot of kind of draft cocktail programs you're seeing in a lot of on-premise locations now. That's maybe 1 to 2 weeks max of all the ingredients that are together. So if you're really wanting to have something that has that 7-month shelf life and keep that crispness, that 2-chamber really kind of comes into play, especially over an extended period of time.
Heidi, Lawrence said that we own the category we created. Is that a good thing? Is that something that attracts your attention as an investor?
I guess I would ask Lawrence, tell me more. What do you mean?
For sure. Yeah. So I mean, I get maybe the assumption of the question is like, do you own, a little playground that, no one else really kind of cares about? But I think, what we've seen over the past year and a half, people really appreciate fresh, whether you're black or white, young or old, even rich or poor, people appreciate fresh and they know it immediately, whether you tell them about it or not, they can tell whether something's fresh or not. And so the fact that we're able to accomplish that through a unique combination of licensing, intellectual property, and doing it in kind of an innovative way where the packaging kind of matches the inside of quality of the juices, we think that is a huge opportunity because it's something that not only plays in the United States, but it's played around the world. And the drinks that we're making really are kind of, 400-year-old recipes. So if we're able to do that and people, liked it back then and they like it now, and we're able to kind of protect that through, intellectual property, we think that has a lot of upside.
Great. Follow-on question would just be, almost to that end of, if you are the category creators, you're juggling quite a bit between, the IP, the co-packing relationship, the fresh, the JDV, all these bartenders, multiple routes to market, supply chain. How do you prioritize all that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what, 7-8 years of, working on it does for you. And so, building it step by step, getting the bottle situated, getting the licensing situated, getting the recipes and the bartender situated, launching with e-commerce first, then now brick and mortar distribution, really kind of getting our chops, making a lot of different kinds of drinks. We have a lot of kind of familiarity with making it. And so we've been able to, scale relatively fast, from 0 drinks to about, 30,000 drinks, in a 12-month period. We really were able to learn a lot. But I think it's a really important point, but thankfully we've kind of, COVID or otherwise, technology problems, numbers of years ago has kind of forced us to be patient and do things in a very kind of incremental, but kind of, as fast as we can kind of way.
Tony, you get the last word. Does Drinksmith's proprietary technology really move the needle for you? Is it as much of a differentiator as Lawrence outlined versus other RTD cocktails that you've tried in this competition and outside this competition?
Absolutely. This is the only one that we've tasted that uses HPP technology. I'm very, very familiar and I love HPP. I think it allows you to bring fresh, cold pressed juices to a RTD. And, some of them hit better than others for me. I like the ABV. Overall, I think conceptually, this is a great way to go. And you definitely, at least for me, you can taste that freshness in the final product. Good job.
All right. Great feedback once again. Lawrence, great seeing you. Thanks so much for the presentation. And I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Likewise. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
All right. All right. Our final contestant for the competition is Andrew Rodbell, who's the co-founder of Post Meridium Spirit Company. Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm excited to hear your presentation. Are you ready to give it?
I'm ready to give it. Let me share the screen. I'm Andrew Rodbell from Post Meridium Spirit Company. I'm a cocktail nerd. I'm also a Coca-Cola trained brand manager and new product innovator. And I left corporate America to follow my passions. And as a beverage geek, I've really enjoyed the last few hours. I think all of us in this competition have a goal of lifting this category beyond its suspect reputation. Specifically, I'm most impressed with those like us who toiled and used cutting edge technology to use 100% real lime juice. That breakthrough is finally bridging the quality gap between bar-made cocktails and pre-made cocktails. It's really an exciting future. And I feel what we created is the best of everything you've just seen, with the added benefit of making cocktails truly accessible, democratic, and scalable. Anyway, the presentation is about how Post Meridium created a big innovation in a little tiny can. The driving force behind what we do is we want to make authentic ingredient cocktails, full strength, accessible as beer and wine. And in order to accomplish that, we took a no compromise approach. If you remember one thing about Post Meridium today, it's that there's intentionality in every decision. The end result is that we created the first line of cocktails in 100 ml cans, and we've been growing rapidly. It seems obvious, but great cocktails start with great ingredients, and we're uncompromising. No substitutes. Our bourbon is barrel aged, not accelerated. Our bitters are steeped, not engineered. Our liqueurs are imported, not recreated in a flavor house. And most critically, we use 100% real lime juice. Why? Because 100% real lime juice tastes 100% better. We make recognizable cocktails because consumers buy familiar. We believe simple, well done is more appealing than fanciful concoctions. We want quality, not hype, just execute well. To that end, we use timeless recipes at the right proportions, hence the 100 ml size, hence the high ABV. The end result is that we make well-loved cocktails by the book. Protecting our ingredients is a critical element to what we do. Yes, the can that we created is cute and it's novel and it's a great marketing hook, but in reality, its primary function is that it's a vessel to protect our quality ingredients, especially the 100% real lime juice. In terms of manufacturing, our commitment to authenticity led us to building our own canning line rather than doing contract manufacturing. While this requires more work, self-manufacturing has many benefits. And all this is done to better serve the distributor, the retailers, and of course, the end consumer. And we wanted the label to tell our whole story. So the design is very intentional. The most prominent feature is the name of the cocktail. Next, we list out the amounts and the ingredients, because we believe in full transparency. And that's the best way to prove that you're authentic. And we frankly stole this idea from other categories, as BevNet people will know, in Spindrift and RX Bar. But really, we think it's a way to connect with millennials. Also, there's a high ABV, and we think that is a value for consumers. And lastly is our branding. So post-meridium, it's the long form of PM, which means afternoon. And it's meant to mark the time of day when you transition from work to play. What better way to unwind than with an effortless bar quality cocktail anywhere, anytime? Again, our goal is to make great cocktails accessible as beer and wine. That's why we have a $3.99 per single can SRP. Affordability makes us accessible. And we're honest enough to know that many consumers will initially try us as an impulse buy. And we do love working through our distributors and our retailers. It's our bread and butter. But we're also excited to work with new direct-to-consumer routes like e-commerce and delivery, because our compact cans are sturdy and excellent for shipping. And to date, we've scaled up well beyond our initial pilot in our home state of Georgia. We've duplicated success in multiple states, and we have many more lined up. We're investing in
Andrew, unfortunately, your time is up, but sorry about that. Thank you very much. Great presentation. And we end on BevNet Magazine. How perfect is that?
It is, and we were flattered to be on the cover as y'all were starting to pay more attention to our little niche in this world. Thank you.
And we're paying even more attention, even literally as we speak. Heidi, let's start with you. It's interesting how much Andrew talked about accessibility and affordability, and that customers buy familiar. Can you break down, your thoughts on this strategy for tackling this space?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. And Andrew, interesting to know your background. Clearly, some of your many years at Coke and brand strategy are coming through here, which is great. My question actually is a bit of a twist on that, because I think there is something to what Ray is saying around this, having a methodical approach and really being clear with consumers. I actually take that back to what we see a lot in the drinks categories. People really resonate with founders and those authentic stories behind the scenes. So how do you take these two things and blend them together, like a really methodical brand strategy approach with connecting with the consumer? And how do you think the brand can achieve that?
No, that's a great question. I'll say this: when I first started, even in the PR world, I was told my people I was working with, I'm not the hero, the product's the hero. And I've quickly learned that people want to know more, they want to see more, and they want to live behind the scenes a little bit more. So we're trying to tell people a little bit more about that. We are from Atlanta. We started here in Atlanta. We have a strategy to be very deep here in the South, and it's paid off really well to start to build those relationships and build that hometown feel, but also scalability in which we know that we can repeat the success in places even outside of the South. So yeah, it's always an interesting balance, but I will always go back to, taste is king. And if the product delivers on, what it's supposed to deliver, and people start to talk about it and have a quick way to talk about it, that's the victory we're looking for.
Great, thank you. I did really appreciate the nuances in the product that you're bringing out too, just subtleties that really made it hit home. So great job.
Taste is indeed king. Did Post-Meridium do the job for you, so to speak, Tony? And I'm particularly interested in hearing your thoughts on the daiquiri and Mai Tai, because you don't see too many of those. I haven't seen too many of those in ready-to-drink cocktails.
Well, I love everything about this. Had a few comments, and the daiquiri was actually my favorite. Brought up one of my questions. You're featuring a lot of fresh lime, and the lime shows itself differently to me in the daiquiri than it did in the Mai Tai or the margarita, and definitely in the vodka gimlet. But Hemingway daiquiri, I was just curious, did you play with a little fresh grapefruit, or did you just think we're going to stick to lime?
No, thank you for saying that. And that actually points out to a real point of difference for us. Our original recipe did have grapefruit, as that is indeed a Hemingway daiquiri. But because the grapefruit did not have the shelf life that we needed it to have, we had to make the tough decision to pull it out. And so that shows you our level of commitment to the quality of ingredients. We are not going to make any substitutes And that's really a great story to tell. So no, we do know that people like to add a grapefruit, Toco Chico on top of it, and it really makes it a perfect Hemingway if you want to have a little lighter version of it. But no, again, I think that the way to answer that question is that yes, ingredient integrity matters and following the true recipes matter. And in this case, we had to make a slight sacrifice for shelf stability.
All right. Molly, I believe you're going to get the last piece of feedback or the last opportunity to offer feedback in this competition. Andrew talked about intentionality in every decision they make. From a packaging standpoint, do you appreciate that intentionality?
Great question. I think that as far as the straightforward branding and labeling, I love that. I think it's very accessible to the to everyone, from the educated to the not as educated consumer, and that's really important when you're trying to scale up, of course. So I think you guys have done a great job of that, Andrew. I think that's really fantastic. I do think that the unique twist that you have put on each of these could be slightly more expressed, because otherwise, you want to make sure that it's clear that you're standing apart from, an average, whatever, everything else on the shelf, basically, because there's a lot of competition in this market segment. So I think, the lemongrass on the vodka gimlet, for example, or the Hemingway on the daiquiris is so small that it almost one would miss it. So if you're going to try and target the high-end consumer, my feedback would be maybe make that a little bit bigger. I wonder if you guys have thought about that. And then the flip side of that is for something like what you were saying, and I'm sorry, I know we're running out of time, like what you were saying about the Hemingway, if it's not going to actually be a Hemingway daiquiri, did you think about changing the name of it or removing that from?
We are changing to the name, thank you. We're changing to the number 4 daiquiri, because that is indeed what it is now that we took out the grapefruit. And again, at one point we kept it Hemingway because we thought we might play with grapefruit bitters or something else to kind of solve it. And we spent a long time with R&D, and we came out with the solution that no, we like the drink where it is. It's fantastic. And we'll change the name to the number 4. So that's what we're doing. But yeah, no, I think the sub names and the subtleties of it are very important for the people to get into it. But again, I'm coming at this from trying to not steal share from the craft cocktails people, the people we're talking about today. I'm trying to steal share from your high noon drinkers and your people who are looking to trade up from something that's not quite as authentic as what we do. So that's why I still think recognizability of the drinks and accessibility in the way that we communicate is key. And then having those subtle moments there to kind of reinforce that it's well thought out and authentic will really help drive home and build loyalty. All
right. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for the presentation. Excited to try your entire lineup of drinks. Once again, really appreciate it, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this, and thanks for this whole competition. I really enjoyed every minute of it.
As have I. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, how lucky are we that we get to hear from all of these brands in the midst of this, I guess, just beautiful moment for an emerging space. And it's really remarkable to hear from all these different brands, all these different approaches to this category. And kudos to all of the 10 contestants that participated today. This is not an easy thing to do, to share your business plan, your passion, your products in 4 minutes. But I think everyone did remarkably well. And I think our judges did remarkably well. Thank you so much to everyone involved. Right now, our judges are going to go and convene and decide who is going to win this competition. I know it's going to be hard because if they have half as many notes as I have, there's a lot to talk about. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're going to sit down with the winner of this competition. We're going to announce the winner of this competition and sit down with that person at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be exciting. But once again, thanks so much to the judges and contestants. This was a fantastic start to what we hope will be a series of cocktail showdowns in the future. All right, welcome back. As I mentioned, now is the time to announce the winner of BevNet's Cocktail Showdown. The winner will receive, once again, a $10,000 ad package from BevNet and an engraved trophy that you, the winner, will only be able to have. You'll be the very first winner of the Cocktail Showdown. So it's a very special trophy in that. Now, it may not seem like the judges were deliberating for very much or for very long, but they had been deliberating a little bit longer than it might seem. And it was a pretty tough competition. And the judges took their time to really engage in some really thoughtful conversation to get down to one brand. That one brand is, once again, the champion of Cocktail Showdown 1, BevNet's Cocktail Showdown 1. All right, I think enough from me. Oh, and by the way, this glass is meant to be, in lieu of the trophy, we have this glass in which I'm going to share a cocktail with the winners of the showdown. Okay. The winning brand for BevNet's Cocktail Showdown 1 is Wandering Barman. Congratulations to the founders, Darren Grenia, Julian Mohammed, and Roxanne Maliki. Roxanne calling all the way from Corsica. Julian, Darren, Roxanne, congratulations.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
We definitely appreciate it.
Well, we definitely appreciate you guys participating. A very tough competition. Again, I think we started out with about 80 brands applying to be part of this, 10 brands in the competition itself, down to 80 to 1, and you guys are the champions. Congratulations once again.
Yeah. And those other brands were amazing.
Yeah,
we were very
Thank
surprised.
you to all the brands. Thank you to everybody involved. This is amazing, and we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, so as the judges were deliberating, a few of the things that they mentioned about Wandering Barman, some of the things that they really appreciated was that your package and your overall positioning was really helping to drive forward this segment. Now, it's still, a very young category, the ready-to-drink cocktail category. But as we're starting to see more and more brands come in, there are, some that are pretty similar in style and positioning. And I think what they really appreciated is that you guys brought something that they saw as pretty unique to this market and to this category. I know we've already talked about this, and you talked about this in your pitch, but can you talk about why you thought that what you presented and how you put this brand together was the right thing for this category? Was what it really needed for more and more people to take notice?
I think really it was our experience in the hospitality industry. It really came from our need to have this when we owned bars and restaurants.
And worked in bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
I think once you realize, Roxanne, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't come really from a product background. We came from, going through the pain of being behind the bar and managing a bar and doing all that. So we, it wasn't like, oh, we.
Let's go back to Darren and Julian for 1 second.
Sorry.
So, I think that's a really interesting point, is that your experience came from hospitality. But, in terms of like product in creating a brand and brand building, what do you see as your biggest challenges going forward?
I don't know, Bill. I mean, well, we definitely need, because we don't have a product background, our biggest challenge is definitely figuring out how the CPG space works in terms of marketing and positioning. So we're definitely looking to expand our knowledge with regards to that. And that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, we're good at the hands-on part of it, the creating, the putting it in the bottle. We've got that down. So I think any help that we can get with regard to marketing or being out there in that aspect of it, I think.
And also another challenge is convincing in some respect, and we've done a really good job of that, of bars and restaurants, that it's okay to serve a batch cocktail. That's definitely a challenge, or it's been a challenge, but people are coming around now. COVID really helped with that.
Yeah.
As mainstream starts to get used to drinking batch cocktails and they're open to new experiences, I think the Gen Z generation are really interested in experiences and trying new things and novelty. I think the renaissance of the bartender with the braces, that's kind of slowly fading away, I think, as people look for more interesting, or not interesting, but just like newer experiences. And I think that's kind of where we are sliding in there. We found in bars and restaurants that were concerned about carrying us, that some of our friends we persuaded to carry our products, they started selling them, and consumers were really like into the bottle, which is not something that we were totally expecting. And so that there's definitely a market for this, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. Yeah.
No, I know it totally makes sense what you're saying. I think it might be surprising given that you were so focused on the liquid that so many people would be interested in the package and the label, but it has become a key part of what you do. In fact, I think that was something that the judges all mentioned, is that, if you look at a lot of the brands that are in this category, a lot of them are in cans, and you're coming into this with this flask, which just looks different on shelf.
Yeah, so that was the reason for this. We knew that there was, because it's 100 mils, there was going to be a minimum amount of retail space, basically, for our product. So we wanted it to pop. So we figured a flask would give us the most real estate. And you put it on the back bar, and people are like, "What is that?" We got a lot of accounts actually from people just looking at that.
Shout out to our design team. Their name is actually Team Design. We did an awesome job on all of our labels.
They represented us,
yeah,
which is amazing. They kind of looked at us, and they somehow they represented who we are.
We were their first alcohol brand, so I think that kind of played into it being a standout bottle or representation of something that's a little bit different.
Yeah,
we're not a typical alcohol brand.
Yeah, we told them not to look at the market and what's out there, just to like hear what we've got to say, and then come up with some expression of that.
Now, you guys mentioned retail, and I wonder, for folks watching who are retail buyers and might be saying, "Hey, I really like this product. I'd love to have it on my shelves." What is your dream retailer? What is the ideal off-premise retailer for you guys?
Anybody that wants to carry us is a dream for us.
Yeah.
Anybody that understands and gets it, and would give us a shot.
We focus with boutique wine and spirit stores right now, because there tends to be a relationship between the store owners or the cashiers and the customer, and they will educate the customer. And I think as our brand grows, we can move into the more high volume liquor stores that don't necessarily have that interaction with their customers, where they can just recognize us and be like, we're interested in that brand, or that brand looks great, we'll try that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Roxanne, we didn't get to hear much from you yesterday. We didn't get to hear anything from you. Excuse me. We didn't get to hear anything from you today. I think one of the things that I'd love to hear from you is sort of where you see this brand going from here. The toughest thing, I think, from thinking about where you are now is where you could be in a year or 2 years or 5 years, especially for an early stage brand. But goals are really important. Where do you want to be? Where do you guys see yourselves in a year's time?
I mean, in a year's time, we really just want to focus on building this brand as a national brand. We really want to, we went through the hard part of having to prove to people that this was a real solution, and we had to think outside the box. But now that RTDs are more accepted, we can really start thinking about where a really good cocktail can be served and how we can waste less behind all kinds of bars and in the industry. So a year from now is national, and then we've had a huge amount of demand internationally, and we see a lot of potential there, and we are constantly in R&D, and we're brainstorming all kinds of formats as well. So there's a lot of potential. I think for us that's even more exciting. Seeing a year from now, especially opening our tasting room now, we're going to have a space where we can educate people on how to batch cocktails and do, really show that great quality can be done in a great and different way.
And once again, where is your tasting room going to be located?
It's going to be in East Williamsburg, Bushwick.
There it is.
Wall Street, Brooklyn.
Very cool. Well, I'm a fan of Peter Luger's. Are you guys in that area? Is that where? Is it?
Not too far.
Yep, 10 minutes.
Not too far. Okay, so I think this is going to be a good plan for some point in the near future is to visit the tasting room, have a cocktail or two,
Yeah, absolutely.
head to Luger's for dinner, and
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. Let's do that.
I'm excited. But in the meantime, can we share a cocktail now?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've already
All
poured
right.
it, but-
I have in my hand Wandering Barman's Swipe Right. This is an old fashioned made with bourbon whiskey, 32% ABV. Oops, I forgot to shake it. Shake in the bottle. That's what it says, folks, right on the label. Right on the cap, excuse me. Shake. All right. I hope I shook it enough.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good. And here we go. To the champions of BevNet's Cocktail Showdown. One, Darren, Julian, Roxanne, congratulations. Very well deserved. Cheers.
Thank you to all the other competitors too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and that's a great point. Congratulations to all the participants in this competition. Once again, the talent level, the quality that we're seeing in this category, it has been remarkable. It in some ways, it's even more impressive than we could have imagined because so many of you guys come from hospitality and not necessarily from a brand standpoint, but yet your presentations, your pitches, your products, all excellent. And it did take a lot to win this. And Wandering Barman, you guys had it. And I'm really excited to see the future of the category, the future of your brand. And speaking on behalf of the judges and everyone at BevNet, well done. Congratulations once again.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. Thank you, judges. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to the end of this competition, BevNet's Cocktail Showdown 1. This was our inaugural edition of the Showdown. We are planning to do a lot more of these in the future. Stay tuned for much more coverage of the ready-to-drink cocktail category, our events and competitions that will be coming in the next, near future months, dare I say. But we're really excited to keep an eye on what's happening in this segment and really excited for the entrepreneurs that are leading the way. Signing off on behalf of the amazing team at BevNet, I'm Ray Latif, and we'll talk to you next time.